The final speaker for the evening is David Bratzer. He's president of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition Canada, and he's a member of Stop the Violence BC. If you'll help me welcome David Bratzer.
I just want to take a moment to recognize a couple of elected officials in the room, I think, that we haven't mentioned yet. The first is Catherine Alpha. Hopefully she's here. Catherine is a trustee with the Greater Victoria School District, a person who I've come to know is a very genuine person and somebody who I know as well truly believes in evidence-based drug education for students in British Columbia. The next person that I'd like to mention is Councillor Ben Isaac. I saw him here earlier in the room. He was up top. I'm not sure if he's still here. Ben, again, a long-time supporter of drug policy reform, harm reduction efforts, and he was actually very helpful in passing a Victoria City Council resolution related to the decriminalization of marijuana as supported by Stop the Violence BC. So, and are there any other elected representatives that we haven't? You, sir? Or ma'am? Okay, thank you very much for being here. It's a little hard to see, the lights are quite bright in my eyes.
Right there.
Oh. Oh, it's on. Okay, and yes. Okay, well, any others? Okay, it's really hard to see there. But thank you so much to these elected representatives for coming here with an open heart and an open mind and for supporting us in this venture. It's so important. So I'm a member of the board of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and I just want to see a quick show of hands. How many people here have heard of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition before? Quite a few people. That's really fantastic. I'm also a police officer here in Victoria. I'll just be really clear that the views that I express here today, they don't represent those of my police department. They're mine alone. And I'm here off duty, and I'm not being paid to be here, obviously. So I became a police officer in 2006. I've been a police officer for 7 years. Before that, I worked as a jail guard for about 2 years. During my time in policing, I worked in patrol for a couple of years. That's where most officers start. You know, driving a police car around the city and taking emergency, non-emergency calls for service. Then I moved into the beat section, which is a unit that walks the beat in downtown Victoria, up to 10 hours a shift. I walked the beat for about 1.5 years, did a lot of street-level drug and alcohol enforcement during that time, and currently I'm in more of a community policing role. But a common theme throughout all of my time in policing is the issue of drugs in our community and what do we do about them, and also the issue of drug markets and what do we do about those. And you know, we've seen repeatedly from the statistics and the facts that cannabis-related offenses actually make up a significant number of all of the drug offenses in British Columbia. So this effort by Sensible BC to address that by decriminalizing the personal possession of cannabis in British Columbia is a very important step. So I think that's very important. And I've been speaking about this issue for a while now, and it's always a little bit frustrating as a serving officer. I ask myself sometimes why more serving police officers don't speak out about this issue. And I can tell you that, you know, when I came up with this position in 2008, it was very controversial. And in many respects, difficult for me as an employee. And I'm not going to get into sort of the details of things that have happened to me over the years. That's more sort of an internal employer-employee matter. But what I will say is that to this day, my public in this area particularly are closely scrutinized. And so I understand why it is that more serving police officers like myself do not come out and speak out about this issue. You know, not that I ever wanted to rise through the ranks and become chief of police or anything like that, but there's no doubt in my mind that I have made some sacrifices in terms of potentially career advancement to be able to speak publicly about this issue. So. And again, I'm not trying to rise to the ranks. That's not my goal. But it is difficult, and I do understand why more serving police officers don't speak out. And then you can ask yourself, well, why is it then that retired police officers don't speak out? Well, if you think about it, you know, you give 25 or 30 years of your life to public service, serving your community, working in law enforcement, forming close bonds with the people that you patrol the streets with. And then at the end of that, you retire, and you want to be retired. You know, you want to spend time with your grandkids. You don't necessarily want to leave a career in law enforcement on a positive note, spending, you know, lots of great times with your work buddies, and then all of a sudden leap into another police-related activity. So LEAP faces some real challenges in that area in terms of recruiting speakers. But we've gone from 5 founding police officers in 2002, and in the past 10 years, we've expanded our membership to over 86 different countries. We have over 140 different people in our Speakers Bureau who are current and former law enforcement officers. And as people, it's some amazing people. Senator Larry Campbell is on our advisory board. He's a former member of the RCMP Drug Squad. Justice Ross Lander in Nanaimo is a retired BC Supreme Court Justice. Randy Long in Nanaimo is a former federal drug prosecutor. People like Jack Cole, who is a retired 26-year veteran of the New Jersey State Police. Our executive director, Neil Franklin, former police major. He used to work for the Baltimore Police Department. And even looking abroad, individuals like Ramesh Bhattacharjee, who is the former drug czar for India, a nation of 1.24 billion people. It's people like Carol Edwards, who is the former head of the Anti-Drug Policy Coordination Unit for the European Union. These are the kinds of people that are joining LEAP. And we have been very successful in changing the dynamics of the debate about the drug war. One of the strengths of LEAP is, for example, at the UBCM forum this morning, there were 2 police officers there to speak out against this UBCM resolution that's going to be voted on Wednesday. But because of LEAP, we were able to have a person there who matched the occupation of those people. So through Law Enforcement Against Prohibition now, it is judges who are debating judges, it's police officers who are debating police officers, it's correctional officers who are, you know, in public forums debating other correctional officers about the merits of locking up nonviolent drug offenders. So LEAP has had a real impact on this area. I'm really excited to see how sensible BC develops. I think it's going to be a very exciting time over the next year to see what happens with this campaign. One of the interesting parts about being on the board of LEAP is that internationally we get involved in lots of different campaigns and ballot initiatives. So, you know, the 3 ballot initiatives happening right now down in the States, in Colorado, Oregon, Washington State, we're involved in those. A couple of years ago, we were involved in the California ballot initiative that almost passed. And then even internationally in places like Latin America and the European Union, whether it's speaking to a local city council or something like that. So we've had some experience in these areas. I think one of the key areas for Sensible BC to work on will be sort of a common set of facts or statistics that we can use in our messaging so that we're all sort of speaking from the same vantage point. And I know for L.E.A.P that was really valuable because we kind of did that. We kind of came up with a common set of fact-checked, airtight statistics about the drug war. And we began using those in our presentations, just a dozen or 2 dozen facts and statistics that we knew 100% were accurate. And it was interesting, we knew that we were starting to win the international media debate about the war on drugs because we kept using those statistics over and over again. And all of a sudden, people that we didn't even know were using our statistics. The other side, people that were in opposition to us, were starting to preemptively try and defend themselves against those statistics. And we began to see columnists and opinion writers and all kinds of people use that base set of statistics that we started out with. I think that'll be important for Sensible BC. A second point about Sensible BC, I think that's very important, is to make a strong economic argument. And I think, I know Dana Larsen is probably 2 steps ahead of me on this, and he'll probably have some efforts that he'll do in that regard. But quite often, political campaigns come down to economic issues. That's one of the reasons why the HST referendum, people were so passionate about this in this province, is because it's something that affected their pocketbooks. And I know I got quoted in the province newspaper a couple of days ago, and the quote that I made was that municipal politicians are very concerned about rising police costs, and we are spending millions of dollars on cannabis enforcement in this province to little effect. So I made that connection between police budgets, in other words, municipal budgets, and cannabis enforcement. And without getting into too many details, I can tell you that that message really struck a nerve amongst some senior police leadership in this province. And so I would urge Sensible BC to explore that further and see exactly what are the numbers in terms of how much of our policing funds are we spending on cannabis. And then the last point I think that is very important for Sensible BC is really the people in this room. And the people in this room really have to believe that this referendum is possible and that it's going to happen and that we're going to win it. In your heart and your mind, you really have to embrace it. And it takes a little bit. Dana was very good in terms of coming to the board of the Canadian branch of law enforcement against prohibition early on, and he talked to us about this ballot initiative that he was thinking about. He asked us for our feedback. We gave him some feedback, and he incorporated some of it into the Sensible Policing Act. But it's easy to be skeptical early on, but as time goes by, I find myself getting more and more excited about this initiative and more committed to helping Dana and the Sensible BC team make it a reality. And that's not easy to do. And when I say committed, I don't just mean like pushing retweet on your Twitter account, or although please keep retweeting me because I like that, right? But that's very fleeting. Like a tweet, social media, it's fleeting, it's online engagement, it's important, but it's not the hard work of a political campaign, right? It's not door knocking, it's not making that commitment to do a monthly donation. And certainly our MLA and our mayor can understand what's involved with that. It's really only a small group of people that are going to get involved, passionately involved in any political campaign. I tend to think those are the people in this room. Just by virtue of you coming here tonight, you've made that decision to be an early adopter, a campaign insider. You've made the decision to be somebody who believes in this campaign, and it's going to be up to you ultimately to make sure that it becomes a reality. So, thank you very much.